Antonio Brown. That's Antonio Brown without his uniform, we are told, without his jersey, and running out of the field. I don't know if that could have been a penalty.
All right, Jen Hill, get after that. We got to find out what's going on there.
She's got to catch him first. It's unbelievable. He's had his issues off the field. Now he's on the field creating an issue. Low pass, hauled in, and good enough for the first down. Mike Evans, Jen Hale.
Yeah, guys, very odd situation. Antonio Brown boiled over, very upset on the sideline, took off his shoulder pads. Mike Evans, O.J. Howard trying to convince him to keep them on. Obviously, they were unable to do so. He tossed his shoulder pads, stripped off his shirt and glove, threw those into the crowd, then ran across the field while the teams were still on the field, giving the crowd a peace out sign. I'll let you know when we hear something official on his status.
Thank you, Jenny.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 82 of Sports Speak. Happy New Year, back from a 3-week hiatus. We hope you had a happy and safe holiday season. I'm Eddie Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
We're joined today by Rahill Jaiswal, a regular contributor for our first show of 2022. It's been a while, and of course, there's lots to talk about in the sports world. Unfortunately, baseball, there's nothing right now because we haven't heard anything about the lockout in about 5 weeks. NBA, there is stuff to talk about. We may mention a little bit at the end of the show, as well as the college football playoff, the semifinals in the books, championship Monday between Bama and Georgia. Really no surprise there. I'd love to talk about Rutgers and some college basketball. I got it framed behind me to celebrate Ron Harper Jr. in the big moment. But we got to start off with the NFL because it's the last week of the season coming up. Still a lot of scenarios. Very few things have been clinched. Shockingly, as an Eagles fan, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Philadelphia Eagles clinching a playoff spot is one of the few sure things we have right now going into week 18. But we have to talk about Antonio Brown first, as Rahill has been texting me pretty often over the last 2 days about this whole saga, which now has spilled into a whole other thing with Antonio Brown going on a podcast and pretty much saying stuff about Tom Brady, negativity about Brady, who's the person who brought him in not once, not twice, and honestly gave him 3 chances because he let him come back after the fake vax card, and the Bucs stuck with him, brought him back on the field. It's just such a weird situation, and there is so much to get into. And I just got to say this to the people who are defending Antonio Brown in this scenario. I understand your content and your feeling about it, but let's be honest here. There have been many times, and I'm not condoning this, but there have been many times for many players that were injured in the NFL where coaches and the system and really the game itself has forced them to play hurt. So whether Antonio Brown is right in this one small situation, which I still don't necessarily believe because he was doing jumping jacks in the end zone, but if his ankle was really as bad as it was, it doesn't excuse all the other antics. It doesn't excuse the whole situation with his vaccine card, which I still think is people aren't really talking about this, and it's a big deal. And whether you believe about whatever you believe about the vaccine or not, at least have, if you're anti-vax, have the drutherings to say that you are. Don't try to deceive the public. Aaron Rodgers at least, was open to the NFL, explained his predicament, and I'm not saying I agree with Aaron Rodgers, but at least he was somewhat compliant. He was open about the situation and he was transparent. Antonio Brown was the opposite of that. So he got another chance and he does this. And it's just really a sad sign because this is now 4 teams where Antonio Brown has severely burned bridges. It's really becoming unprecedented and it's becoming laughable at this point through 3 years. I'm going to go to Rahill first because I know he's very passionate about this. So Rahill, your feelings on what's occurred with Antonio Brown over this past week.
I mean, where do we start? Okay, let's start from the beginning. So he has the tantrum, and he claims it's an ankle injury, and I don't doubt he was playing hurt. I'm 100% sure that there was some sort of nagging ankle injury. But I'm going to say it. When did you get that MRI? Is that MRI from 5 weeks ago that claim you have? Because if you have a bone in your ankle bulging out, you cannot do jumping jacks. All I'm saying is in 5th grade, I had a friend who had a bone pop out when we were playing soccer. He had to get a stretcher. That's all I'm saying. So I don't know how the hell, unless you're Superman, you're doing freaking jumping jacks like you're a Jets cheerleader. That's number 1. Okay. Number 2, he then goes on to take shots at the entirety of the Bucs organization. Okay. and he takes shots at Antonio Guerrero, Tom Brady's trainer, and he says, this dude is charging me $100K and he didn't even treat me. And to prove his point, he puts a text message that disproves his point. The text message shows Antonio Guerrero basically saying, yo, I understand we're going in a different direction. Let me know how to bill you. I'll send you back the $100K. The text is from Christmas Eve, and he still hasn't responded. So what is he talking about? This dude's ripping me off. I don't get it. He literally put that on his story, trying to defend himself and tagging the two in Brady. I'm like, look what I'm working with. Oh my goodness. And then now Bruce Arians is saying it's all about the targets. And I agree with him, because if he aggravated this injury in Carolina, I mean, he played 53 snaps there. He got 10 catches for 102 yards, and the ankle was okay. But all of a sudden, you're getting whipped by the Jets. You only have 3 catches. You have a temper tantrum, and then you say it's all about the ankle. We know it's not about the ankle. It's about the targets. There's a video of him talking to Brady, and there's a source came out that said he started to clash with Brady because Gronk was getting all the first half targets. Don't complain to Tom that you're not getting targets. Tom doesn't care about that. He cares about the matchup. Gronk had a favorable matchup. Give him the ball. You ain't getting open. Get open. I mean, so then he wants to throw all this temper tantrum. Also, guys, even if he's 100% right, the way he left the field, if you're an NFL player, what other player takes off his shoulder pads, throws his jersey into the crowd, throws his gloves, walks out like he's a streaker? Only him. And then he starts doing jumping jacks, skipping, and then he almost sprints off the field. And somehow people find a way to give him the benefit of the doubt and defend him. And then, oh my goodness, what is this situation? Him sneaking some person into a hotel room? So you would have been cut anyway because you broke the protocols. So at the end of the day, even if Bruce Arians let you slide for this, you still would have been cut because you goofed up.
Does Antonio reality show? That's what I feel like. I literally feel like I'm watching an episode of the Kardashians. I'm being honest. It feels that way. And I'm not going to get my point. I'll let you finish in a moment right here. But how do I put it like this? At first, when the first thing happened, when Antonio came off the field, to an extent, I sided for him in that moment in regards to if it came down to the fact that they were limiting his snaps after the Bucs last year allowed players to pursue bonuses and so on, and now they were limiting his personnel and so on, I could side with Antonio in that regard. But none of that turned out to be the case, which makes it so frustrating. And then he continues to go out and continue to make himself look worse and worse and act like it's normal. It feels so scripted. It feels scripted. I swear he has to have a reality TV show coming at this point because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I got to jump in here too, because the two worst things in this scenario, and they both come out in the last 24 hours. It's bad enough, the whole odyssey, that I have never seen in a professional sports event where a player takes off his jersey, takes off his shirt, and it's during the game too. There are players on the field. They're getting all pumped up for a third down, and he's running in the opposite end zone, and the cops thought that it was a streaker. So the two worst things, though, one is this whole accusation about Tom Brady and complaining about how he's not Tom's boy and that Tom needs him. Tom Brady does not need him. Tom Brady got 13 wins with a team with Philip Dorsett and Ben Watson as his two leading targets just 2 years ago. So I don't want to hear any of that. And also, if you're going to talk about anybody being his boy, Rob Gronkowski played for him for 10 years, won multiple Super Bowls, has won Super Bowls with him for 2 different teams. You're never surpassing him, even if you won a Super Bowl, and we're pretty instrumental on that team last season. So that's part one. And also, let's not forget, you got released from the first team that you were with Tom Brady. Then he gave you another chance. So you shouldn't be criticizing him. Then this whole other situation with Ava Louise in a hotel room. I don't even want to dive into that whole thing, but she's a mess too. This is a woman who licked a toilet, by the way, so to try to see if she could catch COVID-19. So the fact that he's even tied in with this, I mean, but between just all the odysseys, between not playing week 17 with the Steelers a few years ago and standing there in a fur coat on the sidelines with a playoff spot on the line, with freezing his feet when he was with the Raiders, to the whole situation with that, to the domestic violence allegations when he was with New England, to the fake vaccination card, to all this, he's just trouble. And I think this is really the breaking point. Even if this situation was partially on Bruce Arians and the Bucs for trying to force him to play with an injury, the outburst, I think, is going to sure his chance of not returning to the NFL ever again. So, Tim, I want to turn it to you because I know you have some points on this as well.
It's again, I mean, it just feels like a reality TV show at this point. I can't make it up. I mean, this is insane. And again, how do I put it like this? This is, by the way, not the first time, at least in the last 10 years, we've seen someone retire at halftime. Granted, now he makes Vontae Davis look like a saint. Everyone totally forgets that Vontae Davis retired at halftime for Buffalo after he said it was enough, but at least he had the decency to not make a spectacle of it in front of the fans and walk out and say, enough's enough. I'm calling it a career. But Antonio Brown, I mean, it's just so frustrating because not only do you show up players to make yourself stand out, but the fact of the matter is too, and I don't want to put it like this, it comes back to bite him because at the end of the day, for example, not only do the Jets jet and lose the game, the Bucs come back and win. And now that Antonio is saying all this stuff, I'm not surprised if the Bucs turn around and win the Super Bowl. I'm really not surprised if they go back to back at this point because he continues. Every point Antonio Brown over the last 5 years has made has always come back to bite him. And, you know, for example, Zoe talked about in the past about Antonio being about himself. Now, in this scenario, I'm going to have to agree. A lot of it's about himself. And the thing about, you know, Alex Gutierrez, put him aside. I take more of a problem to the stuff with Tom Brady saying, oh, you know, Tom, when I got contacted to play with Tom, I didn't get contacted by the general manager. I didn't get contacted by Bruce Arians. I got contacted by Tom Brady. Well, to say Tom Brady's a GM and act like this isn't normal, first off, you're insane. Ever hear of Peyton Manning before? Peyton Manning, and again, I know Antonio used the term of, oh, Tom needs me to play for him. To an extent, he is right, but he's not exactly right. You see, Peyton Manning, for example, would have a lot of say and sway into personnel, whatever. And it's not he needs them to play for them, but he needs them to be there, be present, be active so that they're one as a unit. Tom Brady takes a lot of emphasis and time, not just at his being good at his craft, but making sure his personnel is in queue. And a big reason why, the record, Tom Brady left New England is because he was losing not that ability, but that permission, that access to really become a unit as a whole and develop that winning culture that he aspires as a quarterback. That's the true reason why I think New England fell apart in the long run for Tom Brady. And the fact of the matter is, we've seen, obviously, the Bucs win a Super Bowl last year. They're looking great this year. It's going to probably be the NFC Championship rematch of the Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers. But when it's all said and done, the points about Antonio that he continues to make, it's not out of the normal. In fact, I'd even make the argument, for example, no, far different, but you have young Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. I'd love to see Joe Burrow, for example, have say within Cincinnati's personnel of who he has on the football field to better him. I mean, we saw what Jamar Chase, for example, alone has done for Joe Burrow this year. And I think quarterbacks in general, and it's not just Peyton Manning in the past that have had say. Aaron Rodgers, for example, he wants more say in the organization, so he's more comfortable with his personnel in Green Bay. Russell Wilson, same exact thing. Deshaun Watson, granted, he's not playing now, but Deshaun Watson had the same problem. So at the end of the day, it's just Antonio's going to continue to run his mouth. He's going to continue to do what he wants. And again, I don't want to claim CTE and all that because people are just so quick to jump to that assumption. But I think just at the end of the day, we have to accept that Antonio Brown is just a different individual from everyone else. And rather it's CTE or not, that's not the fact of the matter. It's just more of dealing with Antonio Brown right now. If you're an NFL team, it just can't happen. I mean, he literally put the domestic abuse situation aside from New England. He quit on 3 teams. You quit on Ben Roethlisberger, which, by the way, the Steelers have never rebounded since Antonio left. So, sure, he may have a valid point. And at the time, we were talking about Antonio Brown being the best receiver in the league. He quit on Gruden and didn't even get to play a game in Las Vegas. And now he walks out on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 1 year apart from winning a Super Bowl and possibly having a chance at winning another ring.
Yeah.
And the only teams I think that would ever take a chance at Antonio Brown right now would be a playoff contender. But the question is, who would do it? Maybe the Rams? I don't know. No team in the league that is not contending wants to deal with that.
No team at all.
If he's injured, no team's going to want to deal with it.
I mean, let's take a look. Do you want that man in your locker room? I mean, Green Bay, you want him around Devontae Adams, who's a class act. The Rams, you want him around Odell Beckham, who has had problems in the past and who has seemed to gotten in the good graces of Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp. You want him there? No. I mean, and, Tim, I'm glad you brought up the whole claiming he has CTE thing. Until something comes out that there's actually a report coming out the Buccaneers tried to get him counseling. And I don't know if he refused that, but you look at the way he imploded in Pittsburgh. That started with Juju Smith-Schuster being named team MVP. That has nothing to do with whether he has CTE or not. You talk about it. The frostbite thing in Oakland and the helmet controversy. That has nothing to do with CTE. The fake vaccination card. How he got exposed for the fake vaccination card. He didn't pay his chef. He refused to pay his chef for cooking meals. That is a general thing. You have to pay the people that work for you. That has nothing to do with that. So I'm sick and tired because mental health is a serious thing. But we cannot continue to sit up here and say, we don't know. And people will continue to give him the benefit of the doubt. We gave him the benefit of the doubt in Pittsburgh because Ben Roethlisberger is not a good leader. Let's be honest. Somehow people gave him the benefit of the doubt with the Raiders. Some people gave him the benefit of the doubt in New England with the whole allegations. They said it was fake and all this stuff. But if these things start to line up and happen consistently, there has to be some validity behind everything that has come out. And then he goes on a podcast and says, oh, Big Ben threw me the ball way more than Tom Brady. If it's not about the targets, why are you talking about that? And first of all, that's completely wrong because Brady has targeted him the most since he's got there. Every receiver there, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they've had to sacrifice. Mike Evans made 3 consecutive Pro Bowls before he got there, and he sacrificed and has had to swallow his pride because he knows it's best for the team. But Antonio Brown doesn't because you know why? He's got a bigger ego than Vince Wilfork is in size. That's just it. We have to accept he is an idiotic, diva, egotistical wide receiver. And if he had just kept his mouth shut and he's talking about, oh, why am I playing on a 1-year prove-it deal? If you had kept your mouth shut for one more day in Oakland, you would have got $30 million. And now you find yourself in this situation.
Let me just ask this question quick before we transition. Do you feel when it's all said and done that Antonio Brown ends up becoming far more of a distraction than Josh Gordon, Chad Ochocinco, even Terrell Owens when he was, considered a quote-unquote distraction, which, by the way, I saw that tweet, big spit in the face to T.O. T.O. may have been a diva, but T.O. would never go to the levels of Antonio Brown, let's be honest. So when it's all said and done, and even Randy Moss had his drama, everyone forgets about that. When it's all said and done, though, is it fair to say that Antonio Brown may be the biggest diva of all time in terms of history?
Yes, and I want to jump in on this quickly, too, because there's a difference, and now he has surpassed it. All of the drama with Antonio Brown, they were talking about this on TV, too. It usually stemmed from off-the-field stuff. But you know what? When he'd go out, he'd go on the field, and he'd silence the haters at least somewhat. He caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl last year. He was still productive the week before this. And this is why I hate him complaining about he didn't get any targets. I know there were injuries for the Bucs. He had 15 targets. He had 10 catches against Carolina the week before this happened. So the fact that now this spilled to on the field, he was able to put all of that drama aside and still be a really great wide receiver in that one game with New England and then with Tampa last year and this year when he's been healthy and he's been out there and the antics didn't get in the way. Now it's spilled onto the field. And you mentioned Terrell Owens, you mentioned Randy Moss. They didn't really have it as much spill onto the field where it divulged into what we saw last week. So yes, Antonio Brown is the biggest diva we've ever seen. Thinking Tom Brady needed him, I want to finish with this. It's completely false. And I think there's no better way to prove it than what he did last week. And it's really a symbol of Tom Brady's career. Antonio Brown, things go bad, lots of injuries. He storms down the field a 93-yard drive, and the winning touchdown is caught by a guy who didn't even play college football, Cyril Grayson Jr., who was a track star at LSU. So that if that doesn't scream Tom Brady and his legacy as quarterback, I don't know what does. But we got to move on from Antonio Brown and talk about another thing that I think would be funny if it happens, but I don't think it will. So AFC playoff scenarios, the Chargers and Raiders are playing on Sunday Night Football to finish the season. And ideally, and most likely, the two of them are going to be playing. The winner would make the playoffs, the loser would not. Now, the Colts are playing the Jaguars at 1:00, and the Colts have actually somehow not won in Jacksonville since 2014. I didn't even know that was possible, but it's true. So I know the Jaguars are a mess right now, and now they're trying to interview Bill O'Brien for their coaching position, which would just make things even worse. But let's say the Jaguars win. The Colts can be out if the Chargers and the Raiders tied, and then they both make it in. And I know that's probably not going to happen, but I'm an Eagles fan. You guys are Giants fans. We all know what happened in the last game of last season when there was a bit of a scandal and Doug Peterson sat Jalen Hurts and played Nate Sudfeld in a 6-point game, helping Washington make the playoffs, which now I don't feel so good about because FedEx Field nearly killed our quarterback last week. So all of that said, the Raiders Chargers, I don't think we'd end up with a situation with a tie. But I could see the Colts falter against Jacksonville. The team has not looked the same over these past couple of weeks. They've looked a little more vulnerable. Jonathan Taylor's been great, but you never know with Jacksonville. They could have some added extra motivation. So I'm going to go to Rahill first. How do you see this AFC wildcard race really shaping up here with these last two spots?
Well, ideally, it should shape up how we think. You would think with a playoff spot on the line and Indiana getting their guys back, everyone should be back off the COVID reserve, that they take care of business against Jacksonville. Now, it's a divisional opponent. I don't care what anyone says. Divisional opponents are always tricky. We saw it this year. The Texans gave the Titans all sort of fits. The Chargers have always given the Chiefs fits, even when they weren't great. I mean, not much in the NFC East, but besides that, divisional games are always tough. And so it should play out as Indiana wins because I've backed Indiana all season. I've backed them to make the playoffs from the start. I think they probably could have won the division if they didn't have such a brutal start with injuries and a brutal start to the schedule. But with the way this season has gone, Eddie, I mean, I'm honestly like not ruling out the situation. Whereas, let's say the Chargers and the Raiders are playing and their kickers both miss in overtime, and we end up in a tie, and all of a sudden Pittsburgh is looking out. Now, does Pittsburgh have to win and then hope for an Indiana loss, or can Indiana clinch with a Pittsburgh loss?
I think Indianapolis clinches with a Pittsburgh loss.
Or a win versus Jacksonville. Now, yeah, obviously you'd think they take care of Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But losing 6 straight in Jacksonville, I have no idea. Although last year, the Jaguars beat them. They tweeted out 1-0 and they lost 15 straight. So I have really no idea. I'm hoping that Indy takes care of business, so we all get to watch the Chargers and the Raiders play for that final spot, because that would be a playoff game.
Yeah, that would be fun because those are two very talented teams. The Raiders have dealt with so much adversity this season. The Chargers have had some tough losses, but Justin Herbert is a generational talent and is really proving his worth out of that draft. And let me just say it, all three of those quarterbacks, they've been doubted in different ways. Burrow, Tua, and Justin Herbert. They're all playing the best football of their careers over these past few weeks. So kudos to all of them. But Tim, I want to turn to you before we get to some NFL rapid fire, how you see this AFC wildcard picture shaping up here with these last couple of games.
I mean, it like you said, it all depends on what the Colts do. And I do have this question too. If the Colts win, because I think if the Chargers after the win, they're ahead now. They're in the 2, right? They were out looking in. Who's the 2 wild card in AFC right now? Is my first question.
So it's New England and then the Colts. So there's the 3 wild card spots. Yeah, New England, the Colts, and then if the Colts win, it's just the Raiders or Chargers. They get the 3rd spot.
Okay, because I don't know why, but I thought one of them would jump to the 2, which then made me ask the question, well, if the Colts lose, then do one of those teams lock in either way? But that's not the case. So, yeah, I think then if that's the case, you hope the Colts win because it's going to be hectic. Of course, a tie would, honestly, I mean, after last year, it would not surprise me if the Colts lose, that someone is going to pull some strings. You know, I mean, at the same time, I know we talk about division rivalries, you know, the intents to win, but when you have 2 teams that are in the same division and at the end of the day, you want someone from your division to maybe go on and win a Super Bowl, I think they get along, especially let's not ignore the fact that the Raiders, what the heck of a season. I mean, seriously, the fact that they're still in playoff contention and you lost to the New York Football Giants of all teams, I don't know what to say other than, I want, how do I put it like this? I want to see them make the playoffs, but I know that, for example, the Chargers are the better team. I mean, let's not act like we didn't talk about the Chargers potentially winning the division this year, competing with the Chiefs during the preseason. We knew the AFC West was going to be strong, but emotionally speaking, I'd love to see the Raiders, after all this adversity, you lose Henry Ruggs because of the crazy situation. You lose your head coach. You're going through this transition, personnel. Darren Waller went through his injury woes too, and they had to worry about that late in the season. Yet they still found ways to be competitive, still find ways to win game. And Derek Carr, for the record, not get enough credit, but Justin Herbert too. I'll say this. What a great year for Justin Herbert. He's proving to be one of the most elite quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's proven why that draft class last year with both him and Joe Burrow are elite for a reason. And when it's all said and done, though, I just don't know if the Chargers' rush defense can shut down the Raiders. It's gonna be really tough. And I'm not saying this because I want to see the Raiders win, but that's the one kryptonite for the Chargers this year. They cannot stop the run game. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because they lost Melvin Ingram, outfit to elsewhere, and they're still transitioning. Derwin James hasn't played up to expectations, in terms of for the Chargers, and the defense just hasn't been as sounding as crisp. Honestly, I know it sounds nuts, but it reminds me of goodness. Was it last season Phil Rivers retired, or is it 2 years ago?
Last season.
Last season. Okay. It felt like the Colts last year when they went to the playoffs, right? Where you didn't know what to expect. You knew they had a solid pass defense, but they could not stop the run. But at the same time, it was like you're getting to a game that matters, and it's like you can kind of fit the pieces and give themselves a chance. Now, obviously, the Colts ended up not winning, but it kind of feels like that same scenario for the Chargers a little bit. But the Chargers, again, Austin Eckler has been healthy. You have guys in this offense that has stayed healthy for the most part. Keenan Allen has had a great year. Your wide receiver core has played great. And might I add too, losing guys like Hunter Henry, last year, we thought this offense may slightly take a step down, but yet they're here in the mix. So to sum it up, I mean, Sunday Night Football is going to be a good game no matter what happens in the early hours. But I expect it to be a good one if the Colts don't lose. And if they do lose, I expect it to be a tie. It's just that simple.
So it should be interesting to see. A reminder, you can follow along with our weekly pick'em. It's going to continue through the playoffs. I'm getting closer. I've won 14 of my last 15 games. I'm only 2 games back in the win column from Tim right now. So you can follow along at SportsBeak Live on Twitter. Final segment of the show today. Let's do some rapid fire, some NFL, some college football, some NBA as well. I'm going to go to Rahill first. Cowboys lose to Arizona. Bit of a controversial ending with the Chase Edmonds fumble. But it's been a rough second half for Dallas this season. Dak Prescott, he seemed a little unhealthy, but now he's supposedly healthy, and they're still not playing their best on offense. Their touted run game has really scuffled as of late. They couldn't get the ball moving really at all. They lose Michael Gallup now with a torn ACL. Dallas is going to be in the playoffs. They win the NFC East, but do you see this team really going that far in the postseason?
I don't. And here's why. First of all, I think they've actually been better on the road. So the home field advantage actually kind of plays against it, but also, I mean, you look at this. Look at their offense. It's clear Prescott is still dealing with some stuff. He's not running. He's not taking off and rushing as much. And who could blame him? But this team is one of the most undisciplined teams we have ever seen. They are the most penalized group when it comes to offense, defense, constantly jumping off sides, stupid false start penalties, dumb holding calls. And that's on the coaching. That's on McCarthy. All right. And, all these idiotic fans on Twitter, like, oh, the ref screwed us with that costly fumble. It's like, okay, well, first of all, you don't have a consistent kicker. If Greg Zuerlein makes that kick, then we're going to overtime in that game, okay? They couldn't stop Kyler Murray. He pretty much did what he wanted. He just got outside the pocket, rushed too easily. And also, I'm sick and tired of hearing fans say Trayvon Diggs is defensive player of the year. This man is maybe one of the most overrated corners in the NFL. He's a ball hawk. I'll give him that. But he's given up over 1,000 yards. All you got to do is pull a little double move on him, and he's gone. So this defense, even though it's great, if they can't get the turnovers and give their offense a short field, then I can't believe I'm saying this, the Cowboys offense is the question mark. It's not the defense. They constantly beat up on bad teams. We've seen this consistently. I don't know if they probably have like maybe one or two good wins on their resume. Think about it. Lost to the Raiders on Thanksgiving, lost to the Cardinals. I mean, really, and you look at it, I mean, they got 2 wins against the measly Giants. They got 1 win against the Eagles, got 2 wins against Washington. They play the Eagles again, which they'll probably win. That's 6. So their wins are not that impressive. So I don't know. I feel like the Cowboys, I think they can maybe sneak a wild card win in there. But if they go on the road to Green Bay, first of all, that'd be awesome. You know, after the whole Dez caught it game to go on with the history to go back on the road in Green Bay, I just don't see them getting through. So I think they can win a playoff game, but I don't see them making a run of the NFC title game and Super Bowl.
All right, Tim, the Green Bay Packers, they're the number 1 seed. It's clinched. The NFC playoffs are going to go through Lambeau, but we've seen some letdowns from this team before. But this is probably Aaron Rodgers' last dance with the Packers, potentially Devontae Adams as well, though we might get franchise tagged in the offseason. All of that said, are the Packers the favorites right now in the NFC, or are they destined for another, failure in the NFC Championship game?
I'm going to stick with my gut from the start of the year. And listen, I'd love to see Aaron Rodgers go to the Super Bowl, but I've still got the Bucs right now. I just think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can't count out Tom Brady come the playoffs. And listen, I said it on the top of the show. I truthfully think this year's NFC Championship game will come down to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Green Bay Packers yet again, where it's Brady, versus Rodgers all over again for the battle of the GOATs. And needless to say, again, I mean, the Packers, the thing about the Packers is that the personnel, right, somewhat offensively has gotten better as the years gone on. For example, losing Robert Tonyan to a torn ACL, the team's found a way to mix and match. The offensive line has gotten healthier because obviously to start the year, they started off with injuries. But it's the same thing every single year for the Packers. The question always lies not on the offense, but the defense. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers has had opportunity for clutch moments, but how do I put it? The Packers defense doesn't get demolished. They don't, how do I put it? They're just mid-tier in terms of defenses. They can have a good game, one game, and then they can look like the New York Giants the following game, where they're allowing 400, 500 yards, and they can't play tight coverage. So what it's going to come down to is how does an opponent scheme against them come the playoffs? And honestly, you mentioned the Cowboys matchup as a potential that Rahill mentioned. I think that's going to be maybe one of the most exciting playoff games if it does happen, only for the reason, the fact that we know Kellen Moore is really, really good as an offensive coordinator of scheming and trying to find things. I think that would be the most high-scoring game of the playoffs, and I think that could be the offense outside of Tom Brady's offense that could compete against the Packers defense and potentially break it. But other than that, I only see the Bucs as a threat for the Green Bay Packers.
Let's shift to some NBA. We'll get to more next show, but we got Rahill here, who's a big Knicks fan. Huge win, 25-point comeback, the victory, the RJ Barrett buzzer beater against the Celtics. All the fans can start saying bing bong again outside. But Julius Randle gave a thumbs down to those same fans. And I'm a Mets fan, and I know what happened with Javier Baez with all that. And guess what? Though the Mets played well a few days after that, they still missed the playoffs, and Javier Baez is off to Detroit now. So is it concerning to you at all that Julius Randle could be potentially turning here on these Knicks fans after he's ultimately struggled overall throughout this season compared to last year?
I have no idea. I really don't. I mean, listen, nobody likes being booed by your home fans. Okay. I understand that. But you have to realize in New York, if you're not playing, like, I don't know why people are surprised about this. In New York, they turn on you just like that. One day you'll be the hero in the papers. The next day you'll be the villain. Okay. Last year he was the hero. He didn't play well in the postseason. He became the villain. All right. So I don't know why again, no one likes being booed, but when you're down 25 points at half to Boston and you haven't scored a field goal and you're bricking wide open threes, what do you expect? Like, I'm just being real here. I'm personally not a fan of booing your home players. I don't like it when the Yankees boo their guys. I don't like it when the Mets boo their guys. I don't like it when the Knicks boo them, because I try and be an objective fan, okay? Like, take example, Evan Fournier. Everyone has been slandering this man, and then all of a sudden now everyone's praising because he drops 41 on 10 3-pointers. It's just how it goes. So I have no idea what the hell Julius Randle is doing. I mean, it happens sometimes. These guys are competitive. The competitive fire comes out. But all in all, I think he'll be fine. I mean, really, where else was he going to go? I mean, he signed that huge 4-year extension, so I don't know where else he would go. And honestly, some Knicks fans wouldn't even be. I honestly believe some Knicks fans wouldn't mind him going, because I got mixed feelings about him too. But I don't know why players are surprised about this. It's New York. It happens. I don't agree with it. You might not like it, but it happens.
So final 2 minutes of today's program, college football playoff championship on Monday. I was hoping to see Michigan maybe pull it out against Georgia, but it wasn't even close in the first quarter. Cincinnati, honestly, for the most part, put up a better fight against Alabama. I feel like the Michigan did with Georgia. Kudos to them on a great season. I'm just glad that a group of 5 team got a chance. Hopefully at some point the playoff format gets expanded, so more of those teams actually get a fair shot to win some playoff games, even if they're not going to win the national championship, because we know how powerful these SEC schools are. All of that said, it's going to be a fun national championship game, even though it's just kind of repeated from past years. It's Alabama and Georgia. Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner, lost John Mechie to the ACL injury, but they had the strong performance against Cincinnati. The defense held up. Georgia, we know what they can do with Stetson Bennett. So quickly, your picks. I'll go to Tim first on Bama, Georgia.
Yeah, I've got Alabama winning again over Georgia, and this time by a score of 38-28 to be exact. I think that Georgia, again, really solid football team, but when you compare it to Alabama, I mean, Alabama, first off, experience in these big moment playoffs, especially with a bunch of their experienced players. But on top of it, too, for Georgia, it's not it always comes so close and then we're behind Alabama factor to it, but it's more of, Georgia started off the year so hot. And even in late season wins that they've had, it almost feels like the momentum's faded a lot. Whereas Alabama, after they lost, this team rallied together outside of the near Auburn loss, which, let's not forget, if that team loses, we're not even talking about them being in the national championship picture. But, after that loss, this team, for the most part, was motivated, made big plays, especially the Auburn game. You don't go into a game like that, go through all those overtimes, and not have a season-defining moment, without stuff like that. And the amount of push and poise Alabama's had playing with their backs against the wall all year long. I think for that reason alone, that should push Alabama to get another national title. And I mean, I don't know if they win this year, how many would that now be from Nick Saban?
Be 8, I think, overall. I think it ties Bear Bryant, so it would be a big moment for him. I'm going to make my pick quickly. Alabama, I say, gets the victory over Georgia. I think lightning strikes twice. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be high scoring too. I'm going to go 41-34. Alabama edges Georgia. I think it comes down to the end. Rahill, how about you?
I've got probably Bama 31-27. I think Georgia's going to take like a 17-0 lead and do what they do best when they're from Atlanta, and that's choke it away. I mean, again, like, it's not that they lost the SEC championship. It's the way they lost. They were completely dominated by Alabama. And they exposed that if you can just hold that Georgia pass rush, then their secondary can get exposed, especially if you have the guys. Now, obviously, Mechie won't help. The injury won't help, but they still have the guys to expose that thing, the secondary. So, like, look at Michigan. They couldn't block. So they really didn't have a chance to expose the Georgia secondary. So and also they beat them at home. Think about that. That was in Atlanta, that SEC championship game. And they, after taking a 10-0 lead, they completely wiped them off. And all I'm thinking is, God damn it, Bigsby. If you had just stayed in bounds, we would not be having this conversation right now. But I mean, at this point, you just have to marvel at what Saban has done and how he's able to produce these guys. Bryce Young, Heisman. I mean, that dime against Auburn is just so good. So I got Bama winning.
So we'll see what happens next week. We'll recap that, the NFL Week 18, preview the playoffs, talk about the NBA. Quickly, Rahill, congratulations on Syracuse, class of 26. Me and Tim busy with broadcasting. Tim just did some Big Apple core hockey. I'm broadcasting some Rutgers men's basketball tomorrow against Nebraska. But we hope everybody had a happy new year once again. But we'll be signing off here on Sports Speak. I'm Eddie Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
And this was Sports Speak. We hope you have a great rest of your weekend.